Welcome to the latest episode of the podcast That Wouldn't Die. I'm your host, Kevin. With me, as always, is Aaron.
Hey!
This week, we'll be discussing the 80s horror classic? The Hunger, starring Catherine Deneuve, Susan Sarandon, and, shockingly, David Bowie.
David Bowie was awesome in this movie.
Go ahead and go to our page on Facebook at the podcast That Wouldn't Die. Go to our page on Twitter at TW Podcast, TW Die, whatever it is, something like that.
What the what?
Something like that. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify, Google, Stitcher. The list goes on and on. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and rate us. That's how we get, I don't know what it does. It does something, theoretically. So, good times. And, Aaron, you are also on Twitter, on the solo. What's your Twitter?
The Cult of Aaron. Aaron spelled E-R-I-N.
Not A-A-R-O-N?
No.
Okay.
Believe it or else.
Shocking. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Write it down. So give us the 5-second summary of the Hunger. Excuse me.
Vampires get old sometimes. Then they have to be replaced. And then sometimes when you're a replacement, you're unhappy about that. The end.
That's pretty much it. Good times.
It's high on visuals, low on story.
Clearly. It cuts right into an 80s club, blasting crazy new wave music. And we see Catherine Deneuve, who's we learn, the vampire Miriam, and her lover, another vampire named John. And evidently in the early 80s, there are a lot of swinging new wavers. You just kind of see them across a crowded disco and kind of just wave at them, and they get the signal.
They get the signal,
They
man.
know. They know what that means. So they go back to Catherine Deneuve's fancy apartment, her home, whatever it is.
Her mansion.
And we think that they're swinging, but really, it's for the drinking of the blood.
Mm-hmm.
But we learn very early on that these vampires are not exactly like vampires we're used to.
No, this is not Christopher Lee vampires. This is not Frank Langella vampires. These are new wave vampires.
They're new wave vampires. She dresses like she's from the 20s, right? With
okay, first of all, I
Go
know
for it.
you're just an infant.
Yes.
But the 80s style is a tip to the 40s. That's where we're getting the shoulder pads and the tight waist. It's a big steal. We love the 40s fashion in the 80s.
Were they called the mods? Is that what they are?
Okay, what is this? Quadrophenia? Are you in the Who?
I have no idea. Clearly,
the mods, that's Quadrophenia. I think that was an earlier time, my friend.
Who the hell knows? Look,
that's
I was 7 when this movie came out, so I was not hitting a lot of the new wave clubs.
Yeah, you would have been watching this on the scrambled box with like the line down the center of the TV.
Clearly. Oh, Lord. So what we learned is that they wear these crazy like Ankh pendants around their necks, and then they can pull them, and there's a little blade, and they slash their victims and drink their blood.
So I think the Ankh is the golden razor blade that people used to wear. Let me just tell you that I had a history teacher in high school who wore a golden razor blade around his neck. Little known fact, that's drug paraphernalia.
Yes, that's for coke.
The cocaine.
Yeah, that's not.
So I think this is
flagrant.
a borrow from that. People literally would wear coke spoons as jewelry and razor blades as jewelry.
Because we feel, and I think it's pretty clear, this movie is basically an allegory for drug addiction.
Absolutely.
So there's a crazy montage where they're like shacking up with these punk rockers and drinking their blood, but then it also cuts to crazy baboons And I'm like, are there baboons in this club or in their house? What is happening? Do you know what I'm talking about?
There's not a lot of rhyme or reason with that. That's a whole thread that is very confusing to me.
Right. We meet Susan Sarandon. She is a doctor who's written a novel called Sleep and Longevity.
Oh.
And she is doing experiments on baboons to figure out a way to slow the aging process. Like they figured out how to make them older, but they're not quite there ready to figure out how to make them younger, evidently.
Because little known fact apparently in the 80s is if you don't get enough sleep, you can die.
That little known. Absolutely.
Little known fact.
Yes. And right about this time, when Susan Sarandon's on talk shows and things talking about her theories in her new book, Catherine Deneuve, I'm going to call her Catherine Deneuve every time. I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Why don't you call her Kathy D?
Kathy D, Belle de Jour. She's French. I'm doing my best here. Anywho, she's immediately smitten with Susan Sarandon doing these news things. And about that
Wait
same
a minute,
time...
freeze.
Go for it.
Is she smitten with her immediately? Or is she looking to her as maybe a way to cure what it keeps happening to her lovers? That's what I got first off, but I'm not a man.
I think there's different threads going on here. Because coincidentally about this time, David Bowie starts getting liver spots and his hair's falling out, and
he goes from 30 to 60 in 15 minutes.
Really?
And then to 80 in another hour.
And there's all these flashback scenes of him in the 1700s playing the cello, and she comes in of how they met and how they would always be together forever and ever.
Yeah.
But he knows what's up. He knows something's going on here.
Right, because she must have clued him in at some point. Well, not the whole story, clearly, about what has happened to her previous lover.
Because he mentions one of them by name. What happened to whatever her name, Marguerite or whatever?
Because it's important that you carry the what we think are the corpses of your previous lovers wherever you go.
Now that's the thing. Okay, spoiler. Later in the movie, when he is now a crispy old mummy man, she's picks him up in her arms and carries him up through the elevator, up multiple flights of stairs, into a dusty old attic. Now, he's lived in this place for a long time. Let's say since they've been together for 300 years or so.
Yeah.
Is this just a wing you never went into, old David?
Maybe he knows about it. It's the When a Doves Cry wing.
It is.
There's always a blue light and sheer curtains blowing and white doves everywhere.
White doves, exactly. And that's when it's she opens up, I guess it's a coffin. It looks more like a crate. Tosses his old bones in there and says, "I love you, darling." And then closes it up, nails it shut, pushes him over in the corner with the other boxes, the other crates, says, "Be good to him. Tonight he'll have a rough night." Yeah, I think the rest of his eternity will be rough because evidently you're a mummy, but you're aware.
This is the biggest scam ever. This is everybody likes the idea of eternal youth.
Yeah.
No one likes the idea of being walled up in a box for the rest of time.
Right.
Nobody likes that. That is, I cry bullshit for that.
Well, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, well, if he's turned to dust now, he had 300 good years. He can't be too irritated about that. But you're right. But you're right. There's no end. He's like, if you will not kiss me like you used to, then you must kill me. And she's like, sorry, no can do.
Yeah, you think she's saying no can do because that's too hard for me emotionally. No, just can't do it.
Right.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Take the lid off the boxes. Let them watch some TV or something. Let them mutter to each other. Why do they also have to be sealed in? Can't they be in a craft-made adjustable bed, visiting with each other,
I was thinking about
TV,
that.
looking out the goddamn window, anything? Why do they have to be nailed into a freaking box? That's bullshit.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It's like, at the very least, you're right. You can leave the box open a window, something. No? You got to seal them up. And there's like throwing a tarp over it as well.
What the hell?
Clearly, she doesn't spend that much time up there. That's
and clearly she gets over this biz pretty fast. A single tear and next.
Well, she was kind of moving. The moment he developed crow's feet, she already had one foot out the door. She was like, okay. He's
it's
like,
on.
Miriam, what's going on? And she's like, late ski. I'll be up to.
Uh-huh.
He's like, she's like, yeah, no, thanks. Thanks for nothing. So she does go, and Catherine Deneuve goes and talks to Susan Sarandon about her theories about prolonging life, and quickly determines they got nothing. This is all, this is all theory and blah, blah, blah.
This is a bunch of blah, blah, but isn't she hot, and wouldn't I like to nail her?
Pretty much.
The end, yeah.
So David Bowie is now, again, swiftly decomposing. So he decides to throw on a trench coat and a hat, and he tries to go talk to her. She thinks he's some kind of nut. So she makes him wait in the waiting room for hours.
2 hours.
Where he quickly becomes incredibly old, like in front of the eyes of the receptionist, who's oblivious. Later, 2 hours later,
maybe she has glaucoma or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you not notice suddenly someone was 40 and now they're 80?
Yeah, right in front of you. She offers him a cup of coffee, though, so that's nice.
I would have fallen over. If I leaned down to offer him coffee, I noticed that chunks of eczema-like skin are falling off. I would have been like,
I don't know if it was as bad as all that.
What's the matter with you?
Something's happening. So he actually realizes his time on this earth is not long, but he takes the time to track down Susan Sarandon again and kind of angstily go like, you had me waiting for 2 hours. Now look at me. I'm out of here. And she's like,
by then the junkie need was already kicking in overtime.
But
the
now,
smart man would have lingered.
Well, but now she's like, I'll help you. I can see the problem. And he's like, no, you had your chance, Toots. I'm out of here.
No, he was jonesing for a hit for about an hour and a half. So he gave it all up to go get his fix.
His blood fix. His blood
fix.
I'm not going to suck the blood of the people in the elevator. There's like 10 people in here. I can't do that. There's a crazy dude doing some kind of weird roller skating, gymnastics in an alley for 20 minutes.
As we did in the 80s.
It was literally like, what does this scene have to do with it? It's 20 minutes this guy in roller skates.
It was like some Iggy Pop David Bowie song.
Yeah.
He was roller boogieing too.
High kicks and Russians and the whole deal. It's just like, no one else anywhere. This is just for his own amusement. Crispy old David Bowie pops out of an alley, tries to slice him a little bit. But of course, this is a young, virile gymnast. Yes. So he can't get his fix. He runs home, and then Alice, the preteen violin. She's like, she shows up.
First of all, you noticed her name was Alice because I thought there was some gender fluidity going on here. I wasn't sure if this was a boy or a girl.
They established earlier that 3 times a week they pay a middle school girl to come and play violin with them. Catherine Deneuve on the piano, David Bowie on the cello, and she's on the violin.
Yes.
I mean, they're rich. Does it have to be a middle school girl? Couldn't it be, I don't know, somebody at the Philharmonic or something? But that's neither here nor there.
It is interesting.
So she shows up just to say, hey, can't make it tomorrow for our usual practice. Bowie invites her in, and then...
She doesn't even recognize his voice.
Well, she thinks he's so old and decrepit. She's like, oh, you must be John's father, right? And he doesn't even, he's like, oh, no, just a friend. Why not say, yeah, I am his dad. Do you see the resemblance? No, I'm just a strange old grizzly creature here. He grabs her because basically she's the only one weak enough that he has access to that he can drink her blood. But again, the blood doesn't do anything for him. It doesn't make him young again
It's not
or anything.
restorative.
No.
Yeah.
It's just like you said. It's like an addiction. It's addiction to heroin or whatever else. It's
And
like
so this is someone that they clearly loved.
Right.
This was like a part of the family. So
Yes.
this is another thing that addiction will have you turn on those that you love.
yes. So he grabs her. We don't really see what happens. Frankly, this movie's not that bloody or violent. There's a lot of like quick flash of somebody got cut, and then that's that.
Correct.
Catherine Deneuve arrives later and finds what I kept waiting for is little Alice left a note for Miriam in the hand of a statue, and there's never a callback to that. Miriam never discovers it. It was just kind of like, okay, whatever. But what she does find is an old photograph because Alice was running around with a fancy new Polaroid taking pictures of everybody. So
it's a Polaroid SX70, by the way.
There you go.
The folding type.
Except no substitute. And Deneuve quickly figures out what had happened. She runs down to the in-house crematorium, which, are you allowed to have a crematorium in your house?
Well, as long as no one complains, I guess.
I guess not. I mean,
when
it's
you're
very
rich
convenient.
enough, you can, and you don't have permits, you can probably do whatever you want. But I think it's supposed to be New York. I mean, some of these old places used to have these things where you burn your trash.
I don't think that was a trash incinerator.
Well,
that was a full-blown...
It's a people incinerator now. But they used to have those things where you drop your trash and it fell into the basement and then you just burned your trash.
Down into the furnace or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's very convenient. Whenever they invite crazy Euro trash over, they could just toss their corpses right on in there. So it's easy.
It's important that everyone they invite over also has tiny black sunglasses.
That it is the style, after all. So poor Alice, that's it for her. And that's when we get the scene because old Bowie, the corpse Bowie, falls down the stairs because he's too weak to carry himself. She picks him up, tosses him in a crate.
Yeah, she figures, that's it. I ain't dealing with this anymore.
Good times. And that's when Susan Sarandon finally shows up because she's like, hey, I saw your husband who who aged 40 years before my very eyes. I'm here to find out what the story is. And instead she's like, hey, come on in. Let's have like a romantic kind of chit-chat thing that occurs.
That's right. I just think it's Catherine Deneuve. Maybe you were never a lesbian, but like having a cup of tea with her and she gives you those looks suddenly, why not?
Why? Well, Susan Sarandon has like a live-in boyfriend who's kind of a jerk, basically. He's not very supportive of her. So it's nice to have an ancient lesbian vampire kind of show you some attention from time to time. I got it.
There you go. She scratches an itch.
So sweet Lord. So then begins the love of Catherine Deneuve and Susan Sarandon, which was quite shocking for me, not knowing what to expect. I was like, whoa, it was like Red Shoe Diaries on Cinemax. I was like,
Susan Sarandon has showed her bits and pieces before.
Perhaps, but this was like flagrant. This was like, zoom in.
That's right. I remember what her nipples look like right now.
I don't think I'll ever forget. Anyway, but one thing I did notice is that Catherine Deneuve seemed to have a body double. Did you notice that? It's like you'd see bits and pieces, but you'd never see her face at the same time. So
I don't know if I remember that.
Go watch it again.
I remember that.
I've
already watched it twice.
Oh, sweet Lord.
It's enough already.
That's
but the
far
interesting part about their little tryst, though, is the way they shot it. It was like, did the tryst really happen? Or is it while you're being fed upon, this is what it feels like.
Right.
Because they kind of cut to her being fed upon and then like lesbian action. But is the lesbian action actually the imagined part? That this is, in all those old vampire movies, the bite always seemed very sexual.
Right. That could be. It's an 80s edition.
It's an 80s edition, and interesting because they would cut away. There'd be her feeding, and then it would seem like they were actually having sex. So I wonder if the feeding, it makes you imagine this. So maybe there is no sex. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I think you're reading too far into this. I think it was
going too deep?
It was pretty clear.
And it's clear that where she's biting her is where you would shoot up if
that's
you
true.
were an addict. Too.
Yes. It was like the, the inside of your elbow, basically. Yes. So they had like these hickeys on the inside of their elbow. So she
literally had track marks. The lingo, what they would call it back.
That is true. That is true. I think they still call it that.
Next time I see a heroin addict,
you could ask them
what the latest lingo is. Or your big toes? What's that? Are we still doing the traditional inside of the elbow, kids?
Something. So she drinks all Susan Sarandon's blood, and Susan Sarandon drinks her blood as well. And then, of course, there's that scene where she's having Susan Sarandon's having dinner with her inattentive husband. But now she can't eat anything. It's like she's, I ordered the clams, but now I'm not hungry. I'm ordering the rare steak, but I can't eat it.
Yeah. I hunger for something else.
And instead of saying, honey, are you okay? He's like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Why are you wasting my money, you bitch? Yeah, it was more like, why do you keep ordering this? Women these days, for God's sake.
Pretty much. He was not a sensitive guy. Now, this restaurant I found interesting because there was like a pool right there. I guess maybe they could be in a hotel
Vegas or something. Yeah.
It was something bizarre because she kept like trying to eat and meanwhile like daydreaming there's like naked women in the pool. And it was all like, what is going on, Susan?
Interesting.
So, good time.
I literally watched that movie twice in the past week and I have no memory of the pool.
Be thankful. So later, Susan Sarandon goes by. Meanwhile, there's cops trying to find Alice. Sergeant.
As one would expect, this is why we don't kill people who come to our house on a regular basis. Because guess who the suspect is? It would be their parents, followed by you.
By the creepy couple down the block who insist on a middle schooler visiting them every day. So the cop, it's kind of like neither here nor there either. There's no like, I'm going to bring you down to the station, Catherine Deneuve. It's just a lot of like, hey, have you seen Alice? No.
You going to argue with Catherine Deneuve?
I guess not.
He's like, not doing a lot of in-depth police work.
Okay, I guess I'll come back another time then. So there's a lot of that. Susan Sarandon, I guess, kind of is realizing what's going down with her. So she goes back in what I thought was a very confusing scene and starts making out with Catherine Deneuve. But then she pulls the Ankh thing from her pendant, right?
Okay, I think we skipped the part where she killed her husband and drank all his blood.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yes. So she was having withdrawals, I guess, up in Catherine Deneuve's bedroom. Oh, yeah.
It was something like right out of Trainspotting. She's sweaty, she's barfing.
Yeah, rolling around.
Shaky, rolling around, stomach cramps.
So her not too sensitive husband or boyfriend or whatever shows up, tries to take her, throws a robe on her. Come on, what are you doing? Fighting with her a little bit.
I'm here for my woman. She didn't come home.
Yeah, but then Susan Sarandon does the business on him.
Yeah.
Drinks his blood. So he's dead. He's out of here. And I guess that kind of snaps her out of it.
Yeah. She's like, this is what I got to do for the rest of my life.
Right.
I don't know.
So
it's not like she had informed consent. No one said, hey, you want to be my lover forever?
Right. There was no question.
You only have to do this. It was just like, yeah, absolutely not. Me too. No. No one said yes to this.
She just thought it was some kind of freaky sex act. She didn't realize it was some all, vampirism.
She did not realize. See, that's what I mean about that other scene. I don't think she didn't realize what was really going on. She thought she was having this hot and heavy sex when in reality, the other lady was just chomping down on her.
For reals. Okay. Oh, sweet Jesus. Anywho, so she kills what's his name, who probably deserved it after all.
Like no one's crying about him disappearing.
Clearly not. So she goes down and confronts Deneuve, but just kind of like, I'm going to start making out
In a
with you.
sexy way.
In a sexy way. Pulls the ankh from Deneuve, and then for a second, I didn't know who she stabbed.
Yeah,
at
I
first.
wasn't sure at first either.
But later it's revealed she stabbed herself in the throat. She was killing herself, which I guess that works, right? I thought you live forever if you're David Bowie.
This, if you weren't confused before, this signals mass confusion.
Right.
This is the point where everything stops making sense.
Yes, that's correct. So she stabs herself and dies, theoretically. Catherine Deneuve immediately picks up her still warm body and is like taking her in the elevator. I guess I got to put her in a crate too.
That's right. Where's my carpenter? Does she just have stacks?
It's like a Home Depot or something. So she runs up and immediately tosses old Susan Sarandon in a crate. But then all the other crates pop open, and it's like a thriller. All the old
Everybody's
crispy
waking
mummies,
up, I guess.
And they're grabbing at her, and she's screaming and not happy. You know
what was happening to Catherine Deneuve? What caused her to die? Question mark.
This is an excellent question. So zombies are kind of grabbing at her, but not really doing much. She's upset. Eventually, they push her off the upper balcony of like the staircase or something, and she plummets.
Did they?
Yeah, they push. Well, okay, either they pushed her or she just kind of was backing away and falls over, and she crashes down below onto the marble. So now she's dead, I guess. Question mark. Quite well. The problem is early on they establish that these are vampires, but they're different from other vampires. They go out at daytime. They don't have
fangs. Yeah, they don't have fangs. You can take their picture. There's mirrors.
Well, they sleep in a bed.
They're addicted to blood. That's all it is.
Right.
That's what it is.
Well, and they live, you know, Deneuve has been around since like Egyptian times.
Yeah.
So she is allegedly totally immortal. Whereas every 300 years, she grabs a new consort who could only last for 300, and then you just become an old mummy for the rest of eternity.
So I see now we've just drifted into the what does that mean segment of our review.
That's... So wait a minute, there's a smash cut.
I have pages of notes about
Let me just finish up the thing. So there's smash cut. She's dead. Somebody else has bought the place. The old detective's like, well, I guess we'll never solve Alice's demise. Too bad. And then bails.
It's New York City. Time to move on.
And then it's revealed that Susan Sarandon is now the immortal vampire woman, and she's got like a little lady and a little dude who live with her now. Why? How did this make sense? The world will never know. So
the world will never. There was supposed to be a part 2, but they never got around to it.
So let's go behind the scenes. What do you got?
I got all kinds of good stuff. Because let me tell you, this movie is beautiful. I think you should see it for the cinematography. It is the music is fantastic. The visuals are fantastic.
It's very 80s.
It's like what I say. It's super 80s, all style.
Well, it's directed by Tony Scott, who would go on to direct Top Gun and Days of Thunder.
Yeah. Oh my God. And if two movies couldn't be so different between this and Top Gun, I had to look that up again. I was like, that don't seem
Tony
right.
Scott, Ridley's little brother.
Yes, I think he was trying to impress Brother Bear. And for God's sakes, I have Googled and Googled and Googled. This movie came out before Prince's When a Dove Cries, but that whole When a Dove Cries movie is lifted right out of here, and I can't find anything where anyone's even discussing
You're the first one to notice, I guess.
I'm the first one to notice that. I can't believe either that or the other theory is that it was just something that everybody did. I did see some people. I heard a cry in the background.
But we're getting there.
A cry
we got
in the
about 5
darkness.
minutes. Let's wrap it up.
All right. So a lot of that stuff, I'm seeing people compare a lot of this film to Barry Lyndon. Once again, a Kubrick thing. That whole thing when she goes back into time and they're in the period costumes playing and the curtains are waving. They say that's lifted out of Barry Lyndon. That it's a lot of stuff borrowed from Bertolucci. Anyway, that's all highbrow.
That's
whatever.
not our audience.
Let's go into
not
the good
our
stuff.
audience.
We open up to Bauhaus. Very big in
Yep.
the 80s if you were in the MTV generation. Personally, Bauhaus is not one of my favorite
What was the name of the
bands,
song they were singing? Do you remember?
Bela Lugosi's Dead.
That's right.
That is the name of the song.
Sweet Jesus.
So I did find some interesting article. They were interviewing Bauhaus about filming all this, and they were talking about they were so freaked out about being on set with David Bowie that they were like literally like little kids sitting. They would huddle together and like whisper out Bowie, and they would just stare at him because they were just so in awe of being at the same room. But Bowie's a very friendly guy. He came over, was chit-chatting with them, and that they were just like, "We are not worthy. We are not worthy." So that was kind of fun. Rocky Horror Picture Show kept popping into my mind when they're out at the clubs. Everybody looked like one of the guests who came to meet Frankenfurter's
Time warp
creature. Time warp. It was totally time warp. I was alive and well in the 80s, and I just always remember thinking, how come I didn't go to any of these effing clubs? Maybe we should ask my sister Megan. I bet she went to some of these clubs.
You had to be in New York, I think, is how it worked.
I think so, but it was not Palm Springs, and it was not Humboldt State University.
Sadly.
So, no. What else did I put down here? I don't understand this parallel with the monkeys. Is this some disease that cross species line? Is this outbreak? Is this Ebola?
It's 28 days later. It's the exact same thing.
What the hell with the monkeys? Is that we're supposed to understand that this is a crossover? No. There's a
I don't think
here?
so. I think it was just a bizarre juxtaposition where they were just like, hey, we're experimenting on longevity with these monkeys, and the one monkey's getting really old, just like David Bowie.
It turned to
powder.
Was
bizarre.
It turned to powder.
So even the decomposition is sped up. Okay, interesting. Good time.
Make no goddamn sense whatsoever. Yep. There was one cool scene. I'm flipping around when they were taking the corpses wrapped in plastic of the hipster vampires they killed, and they threw them in there, and the kind of plastic melted around the face. That was kind of bad. That was kind of badass. Let's see here. Bowie can't sleep. What else do I put here? Oh, why was there that dude bathing in the public restroom with Bowie licking his lips?
That too. Yeah,
what
old Bowie.
They were in a hospital. I'm washing out my pits. And David Bowie's thinking, yummy, I'm hungry.
Old crispy David Bowie goes into the bathroom of that medical center to kind of splash water on his face. And some orderly is like doing a bath in the sink right next to him. He's just like, what? Yeah, I'm bathing myself. So what? Did they hire the homeless there? Is that what the story is?
Exactly. Makes no goddamn sense. The other thing is I've spent hours trying to find that tiny little leather or silk hat that Catherine Deneuve looks, because I feel like I need to start dressing more like
What about
Catherine
the giant
Deneuve,
gold salamander pendant that she was wearing wandering around?
I'm getting that too. Well, she was a longtime muse of Yves Saint Laurent. Yves Saint Laurent did all her clothing, so clearly I need to find the Target version of that little skinny black hat. So next time you see me, I may be wearing a tiny leather hat that I've had to glue together with the
crazy little veil
and tiny sunglasses and a plastic iguana on my lapel.
Good times.
I just spray painted it, arts and crafts. But she's a badass.
She's great. She's beautiful.
She is beautiful. I read even the lipstick is like Chanel, and it was like blood or something.
I believe it.
I mean, it was all about the look, man. And this movie has just beautiful visuals. It is amazing. I know you hate it. I'm willing to overlook the incoherent story.
It's just
because to me, I slip right into my 80s where why shouldn't I be driving a Saab? I deserve a BMW 7 Series. I don't care if I can't afford this. That's why Ronald Reagan invented credit.
This is my issue. It's not a horror movie. It is basically a 9.5 weeks, 2 Moon Junction kind of like being swept away love fantasy that you'd see on the Lifetime network. That's all I'm saying.
This is Lifetime 2, the alternative Lifetime channel.
Lifetime After Dark is what this is.
Lifetime after, instead of just, your husband beat you and your inspiring story of how you escaped, it's all just like dark fantasies and vampirism with a lesbian outcome in the end. So I feel like we kind of rushed over the whole slobopple ending of this thing.
We did.
So I'd like to discuss from when she kills herself and everything goes awry.
Lay it on me.
So, all right. So Susan Sarandon decides that she would rather be dead than to live this terrible life.
Right. Because she just killed her boyfriend / husband or whatever.
And decided, she's the junkie who decided it's not worth it.
But I have to, let me jump in. I have to say, there wasn't a scene where she's like in tears going, what did I do?
No, there is no kind of transformation. That's apparently off screen. We don't actually really see her killing him either.
No,
it's just
we don't. She comes in with blood.
It just all kind of happens. There's no real discussion. There's no real argument about this is my lot in life now. And she never really talks to Miriam about what all this means.
Right. I mean, we're putting a lot of subtext into this text because, frankly, there ain't much subtext.
So I just want to have some kind of clarity. And so she kills herself. And then Miriam is distraught and takes her upstairs. What exactly triggers Miriam's freak out? She's scared to death because her past lovers are crawling out? Or tell me, remind me.
I mean, yeah, because, for 6,000 years, it's all been good. Just throwing the corpses in the crates and never the twain shall meet.
But
and
how
now
did they
suddenly
get
they're coming
out?
Up. Right. There's no explanation.
And then she sees them, and she's so scared of death that she has some kind of seizure that accelerates the aging process.
Does she get older? I'm trying to recall.
No. While she's seizuring, you see her start to wrinkle up. She starts getting the smoker lines and things like that.
After she falls to her death, right?
So interesting. How do you fall to your death if even turning practically to powder doesn't kill you?
Right.
So she's seizuring out. All her lovers have somehow conspired. They must have been sitting there for eons whispering to each other in their boxes about it. Wait till I get my dusty hands on that bitch. I can't wait to freak her out.
Because they couldn't move. Bowie could not move when she put him in there. He was so decrepit.
He just laid there, right?
Right.
So I mean, maybe he was just still stunned, so he couldn't figure out how to get out of there. I mean, what do you just turn to 90 and then you just lay there like you're in a coma now, a waking coma where your body's paralyzed, but the brain continues to process till you've lost your ever-loving mind?
Well, she says something to that effect, right? When she's like carrying him up the stairs, she's just like, yes, you'll feel everything, you'll see everything, you'll hear everything. but
I'm
she won't
just
be able
telling
to
you
move.
this now. Yeah,
Right.
I'm just telling you this now.
Yeah, buyer
Also,
beware.
she's Harvey Weinstein. So is that what we're saying? No consent.
That's exactly what we're saying.
Me
sadly.
too. Me too. So this is just terrible. Of course, clearly, no one would ever consent to this nonsense.
No, of course not.
And I imagine that since Egyptian time, because they keep flashing with her and various lovers throughout history,
Right.
including Egyptian time.
Ancient Egypt. Yes.
Ancient. I guess she's more of the Hellenistic Egyptian versus,
Yeah, because she's a white lady.
Because she's being white. She must be Greek. So there we go. So back then, I imagine you've seen atrocities, right? So why would your dead lovers, who you go and, I don't know, whisper to every so often,
we hope,
freak you out? And by her suddenly kickstarting her aging process, why does that then release them? Because they literally just blew away and turned to nothing.
Right. I'm trying to think. I know Susan Sarandon
was pissed.
She was mad that they changed the ending to this one. I think initially she was supposed to die. And that was basically how it was going to end, right?
And honest to Jesus, where's the director's cut for this one? Tony, unfortunately, has gone on to be with Jesus.
Yeah.
But maybe Big Brother Ridley can slip in here and just do a director's cut where we remove this bullshit ending that makes no goddamn sense.
Yeah. Sarandon basically said, I think that the studio executives wanted a more kind of scary type ending, which is why you've got like literally the thriller zombies coming out of every corner, dancing around.
Exactly. I can just imagine our nephew doing the Michael Jackson thriller dance.
You better believe it. No, there's no explanation. It doesn't make any sense at all. Why they would all come back from the grave at that moment, and why she falls from a great height.
For 300 years, have they been slowly pushing the nails through?
She's been doing this for 6,000 years.
So would the wood deteriorate? I mean, she carted these people over from ancient Egypt? Or are there another pile of boxes over there?
I mean, right? Because she's been with Bowie since the 1700s. What, in England or something?
Somewhere, I guess. That would explain. I don't know. She's still French. He's still English. They're somewhere. Vague European country.
Right. He had the crazy, what is it, the Baroque ponytail style from 1776.
And he looked good. Well, that's what they're claiming is all, the Kubrick influence there.
Yeah, so who knows? I mean, how many bodies would that be if she's been doing this for 6,000 years?
How many? At least two and a half a millennium.
Right.
See, it's almost
nicely done. So it's like 12, 15, give or take.
Yeah, 15. There should have been a few more people all crusty and dusty.
Yeah, I mean. It is literally, it makes no sense. There's no explanation. Now, granted, there ain't a whole lot of explanations popping up in this anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, the connection between the baboons and the vampires, who the heck knows?
They could have, literally, they could have brought that around like maybe she got bitten by an Egyptian monkey 3,000 years ago, and that's what turned her. But basically, clearly, then all of a sudden they want to follow the vampire trope where if the queen dies, everyone below drops dead.
It is not. Well, and fine. What if they all chose that moment to come back from the grave? Why is Susan Sarandon now the queen bee?
And why is she not dead? Oh, because you can't die. You can pass out? Is it like American Horror Story this season where you just die over and over and over and over and over?
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like we were just told that you can't die. There's no release. There's no.
I thought
escape.
Maybe the infection hadn't taken its full hold yet, but no, that's not true. So Susan Sarandon, I guess you could say, didn't know all the rules, so she just stabbed herself and kind of felt a little icky and passed out, and that was that.
It's nonsense. It is total nonsense.
And then we cut away to Susan Sarandon with her. She was so opposed to this that she went ahead and decided to make 2 people to chill with, in case one gets on her nerves, I guess.
Basically.
And then you see crazy Catherine Deneuve, who clearly still has plenty of energy because she's yelling and screaming and banging in her box.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Thrashing around in her box.
Hey, you F! Wait till I push my nails out. I'm going to come and get you too.
That's a good point. That's a good point. No, Susan Sarandon basically said the idea was her character commits suicide because she decides she would rather die than live in eternity as an addict. That was she thought. She thought that was kind of the theme of the movie.
Of course, and that was the theme of the movie until it's like you got to just stop it right there. Don't watch any further.
Right. The moment she stabs herself in a confusing scene, then you gotta hit the eject button and move on with your life, because at that point it's kind of freaky imagery, but it makes no sense even a little bit.
Too bad. I mean, this movie is ripe to be remade.
Well, let's not get carried away. I think
it could be done better. I mean, it's based on a book, which I, of course, did not read because Lord knows I never knew that this was based on a book.
It's the same guy who wrote Wolfen, and there's another book he wrote. But he actually wrote 2 sequels to this book as well.
There was supposed to be a sequel, and it just, it's one of those cursed manuscripts that never came to fruition.
Well, all the crazy new wave visions and imagery, it was soon out of style.
You need to shut your mouth because I love the fashion in this movie so hard. I've literally just been Googling, where can I buy this? I have some crazy little skinny glasses like that. It's beautiful. It's all futuristic and freaky and glorious.
Lovely. It is.
And just this is early 80s. Yeah. So there were still discos. So you'll notice that Bauhaus is billed as like disco band or band at the disco.
That's right. That is absolutely right.
It was classic.
Oh, God, sweet Jesus. No, I mean, it's...
disco didn't die I have this whole theory. This is why I made you come back. So disco, didn't die in England. It just moved on and eventually became like Jane's Addiction and all these other bands. It just kept rolling. Electronica. It's all electronica.
I'll take your word for it. This is all a foreign language to me.
And if you look at, the 80s, it means other music to other people. I don't know why. But to me, it means punk and new wave. Right. And we just had... it was the British invasion all over again, where every dude looked like a vampire.
Right.
You got all these slick, hairless, like a Sphinx cat, men with ruffled sleeves and velvet coats.
They look like
wonder
Lestat
there's a
or whatever.
Vampire. It is all Lestat. And who knows? I assume now everybody was gay, but not everybody. There was still that 10%.
Or at least fluid,
It was some gender fluidity. That's our phrase that pays this week. But I can see how this movie got made in the 80s faux show.
All I know is you hear about a vampire movie called The Hunger. You think it's going to be some vampire stuff going on. And frankly, it just isn't, in my opinion. It was like I said, it was like 9.5 weeks. It was like you're a buttoned-up professional, but here's this hot. Be thankful. But here's a hot European coming in here, giving you the eyes, opening doors to worlds you'd never experienced before. That's basically what.
Are they the Cenobites now? What is that?
It might as well be. That's basically what it is. It's like there's no bats, there's no stakes through the heart, there's none of that. There's no Frank Langella, like you said. Sadly.
But I'm telling you, I'm going to defend it. The end is pure crap. That's happened before, for damn sure. Every M. Night Shyamalan movie, except for The Sixth Sense. But I'm telling you, it is like an MTV beautiful music video from back in the day.
Okay.
I defend.
Any last thoughts before we move on with our lives?
Well, Susan Sarandon, here's my little tidbit, had an affair with David Bowie on the set of this film.
That's true. Very much.
Susan makes her way around, and excellent choice, I say. Because David Bowie did look slick as hell at the beginning with his black hair and everything. He looked rock and roll. He was like a little punk rocker.
She also said that no matter what your persuasion, if Catherine Deneuve throws something at you, you got to pick it up.
I would say Catherine Deneuve is a beautiful woman. She's got that French accent. Who's to say you have a couple glasses of wine and then next thing you know, Catherine Deneuve's putting her hand on your leg? Who can say?
That's interesting because the script originally said that Susan Sarandon's character was supposed to be like half in the bag, and that's why she kind of goes over. But Sarandon actually said that she didn't want to do that. She wanted her to go into this with her eyes wide open.
It's Catherine Deneuve. She doesn't need to drug you. She just says, hello, get in the damn car. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Same with David Bowie. Yes, sir. Here I come.
That's
Bye, everyone.
That's why Susan Sarandon basically has a sip of wine and then pours it all over her shirt, which immediately leads into the Red Shoe Diaries. So there you have it.
Diary.
Good Lord.
Skinamax.
It was straight Skinamax at that point. So good times had by all. Anything else?
Nope, that's all good. 80s fashion rocks. We need to bring that shiz back.
Let's not get carried away. That might be a bridge too far.
Not the pastel thing. And not like the high top tennis shoes, but like we need to bring a little shoulder pad back with a cinch waist. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I'll leave it to you. So there you have it. Thank you for joining us. Go to our page on Facebook at the podcast I Wouldn't Die. Go to our page on Twitter at TPodcastTWDie. Go to subscribe, like, share on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, etc., etc. Aaron, you're on Twitter.
I just want to say that I wasn't paying attention to what you were just saying. It sounded like I like share. I'm like, I like share too. My Twitter handle is the Cult of Aaron. And I think there's like an underscore or a dot or whatever that it's required between each word. The Cult of Aaron.
Yeah, I do like share. If I could find my clothes. Anyway, so thank you for joining us and be well.